Full and intelligent animals. We admire and love them for their unconditional affection, loyalty, and playful exuberance. Nevertheless, dogs and humans are very different creatures. Dogs have some innocent but irksome tendencies, like barking, leash pulling, jumping, digging, chewing, and eating garbage, that can sometimes make them difficult to live with. To make the most of your relationship with your dog, you can teach your dog some important skills that will help them live harmoniously in a human household. Training your pooch will improve your life and theirs, enhance the bond between you, and ensure their safety. And it can be a lot of fun. In this video, we'll talk about 8 easy and important things to teach your dog and explain the training process in an easy way that any dog can understand. Leash pulling. Perhaps you're on a walk around the block and your pooch keeps pulling on the leash, nearly choking themselves. Dogs pull on the leash because it works. It gets them where they want to go. And oftentimes, the more they pull, the faster they get where they're going. If your dog starts pulling on the leash, turn yourself into a tree. Stand very still and refuse to move until your pooch comes back to you. Do not drag your dog along with you and do not yank or jerk the leash. No matter how hard your pet pulls, stand still and don't move in the direction that your dog wants to go. The reason is that if your dog pulls and you follow them, the dog is learning that pulling is an effective way to get to where they want to go. But remember, your furry friend is young and very active. Canines want nothing more than to be running around and exploring their surroundings. It takes a lot of self-control for a dog to hold themselves in on a walk if they haven't gotten enough exercise. So, give your dog plenty of exercise before you go out to set them up for success. Eating off the ground. Imagine you're on a walk and your dog smells a spoiled sandwich on the sidewalk or garbage in the park, or perhaps you've spilled some medication on the floor. The last thing you want is for your dog to go running towards the perceived treat and scarfing it down. But how do you teach your dog to leave things be? The leave it command is exactly what you need. It can even stop a dog from chewing power cords or your favorite pair of shoes, and teaching it to your dog is easier than you think. Place a treat on the floor with your toe or hand over it and say, "Leave it." Your dog will lick and nose at you and try to get that treat. Eventually, though, they will stop trying and glance away. As soon as your pet stops trying, give them a huge fuss and a reward. After repeating several times, you can now make things more difficult. Drop a treat on the floor and say leave it. If your dog goes for it, cover the treat and say no. If they ignore it, immediately reward them with a treat from your other hand. After several repetitions, your dog will understand the meaning of the leave it command. Most dogs learn this command within an hour. And remember not to use the treat on the floor to reward your dog. It's time for your dog to understand that this isn't about eventually getting the item. After all, dropped medication will never be up for grabs. And make sure the reward treat is of higher value than the floor treat. This emphasizes that leaving certain things alone leads to the chance for even better things. Begging at the dinner table. Oftentimes, when you sit down at the dinner table, you end up with a furry beggar with adorable puppy eyes by your side. You'll probably be tempted to give them some table scraps, but not only does this reinforce this unwanted behavior, but it can also lead to health problems and canine obesity. After all, some foods that are safe for humans can be harmful for dogs. In these situations, the worst thing you can do is to give in to those sad puppy dog eyes. By feeding your dog table scraps, you are essentially telling your pooch that if they beg for food, they will get it. When dogs are well behaved and don't beg for food, that's the time to give them treats. And remember not to give your dog a treat from the table, as that will encourage begging. Your furry friend will eventually realize that their puppy eyes don't pay off and they will stop begging you. You can also use some basic commands like sit or leave it to discourage impulse-based behaviors. For example, if your dog jumps up on your lap to beg for food while you eat, simply tell them to sit. Jumping. You walk in the door after a long day of work and your adorable dog jumps up to give you a big kiss. Or Perhaps your dog jumps on your guests or the kitchen counter to steal some food. You do not want him to feel rejected, but he is now a big boy and this jumping is too much to take. This is another behavior that can be trained out of dogs. Oftentimes, dogs jump because they like to sniff a person's face. Dogs greet each other nose to nose, and they want to do the same with us. Since our noses are not at their level, they jump up to reach our face. The first step is to ignore the behavior and only give attention when they have all their paws on the floor. If your dog jumps on you and you give them some kind of attention, like looking at them, touching them, or talking with them, you're basically telling them you approve of this behavior and therefore jumping continues to happen. If your dog jumps on you when you come home, immediately walk away and close the door. Wait about 1 minute and then walk back in to greet your dog. If he still jumps at you, walk away again and close the door. Keep doing this until they calm down. If your dog jumps on you while you're preparing a meal or their food, don't push them away. They will probably think that jumping wins them some attention. Instead, walk away from the food and ignore them for a minute. Make sure the food isn't accessible to your jumping dog. Repeat until they calm down. If your dog jumps on your guests, you can work on a sit command. You can also ask your guests to assist with the training. Ask your friends to ignore your pets when they jump. Stop barking. Imagine you are on a walk with your dog and your pooch starts barking at other dogs or people, or your dog barks excessively inside your home. Barking is a natural reaction for most canines, but sometimes it can become an annoyance, and there are ways you can stop that. Oftentimes, dogs may bark to get your attention, some playtime, food, or even get out of the crate. In these situations, don't respond. Don't touch them. Don't even look at them. Your attention only rewards them for being noisy. When they're finally quiet, reward them with a treat. Dogs may also bark at people or other dogs if they haven't been socialized well enough. Dogs want to protect their territory, and a dog who has had experience with different types of people like cyclists, people in wheelchairs, and children is less likely to bark at them. It's important to let your dog meet different people and other dogs. For example, letting your dog meet the mailman and asking them to give your dog a cookie can help. Another reason for a dog's barking is boredom or loneliness. Dogs are pack animals. When they are left alone for long periods of time, they can become bored or sad and often bark excessively because they are unhappy. Dogs with separation anxiety may also develop behavioral issues such as chewing furniture. Make sure your dog is getting sufficient physical and mental exercise. A tired dog is a good dog, and one who is less likely to bark from boredom or frustration. If you work longer hours, it is a good idea to have someone stop in and check on your pet. But let's now talk about how to teach your dog the quiet command. It's much easier than you think. To do this, you will first need to teach your dog the speak command. Do something that will cause your dog to bark, like holding a treat in front of them for a few minutes. Your dog will eventually get frustrated and bark at you. As soon as your dog barks, immediately mark the behavior with a command like speak and reward them with a treat. Repeat until your dog learns to bark when you say speak. Most dogs pick it up within an hour or so. The key is to wait for the dog to bark. Once your dog learns to consistently bark when you say speak, you can teach them the quiet command. Hold a treat in front of their nose and say speak. The instant your dog stops barking, say quiet. If your dog stays quiet for a few seconds, give him the treat and a huge fuss. After several repetitions, your dog will understand the meaning of the quiet command. Most dogs will learn both the speak and quiet commands in one single training session. Treats. We'd like to talk more about dog treats because not any food is a good choice for training sessions. Remember that treats should be small and easy to eat. You don't want to lose time waiting for your dog to eat the treat or distract them with a big meal. Make sure that your treats are good for dogs' health and manage the calorie intake. You should avoid sweets and chocolates because they can harm your pet. And it's best to train your dog before their meals. A dog with a full tummy may not be interested in your rewards, and sudden movements can disturb their stomach. And remember, for us, a dog is just a pet. But for our dogs, their entire life depends on us. They need us and love us till the last day of their life. So do your best not to hurt their feelings. And be patient with your puppy. Even the smartest dog on the planet needs some time to learn a new trick. It's important to remember that many unwanted behaviors, such as destructive behavior, leash aggression, or going potty inside, get better with age. Ignoring your commands. Many dog owners get frustrated when their pup ignores their commands. More often than not, dogs ignore us because we have unwittingly trained them to do so. You see, training happens every time we interact with our dog, whether we notice it or not. If you keep telling your dog to get off the counter or calling them to come to you and they don't listen, then you are actively training them to ignore you. We need to make our words count in dog training. Remember the main principle: the behavior that is rewarded gets repeated. If good things tend to follow a behavior, a dog will do more of it. If they don't, he'll do less of it. You may get frustrated if your pup refuses to come when called, but no matter how upset you are, you must reward and praise that dog when they finally come. If you scold them when they get back to you, you are making them less likely to listen to you next time. And be aware that owners typically call their dogs just before it is time to go home from a park. By doing so, your dog learns that coming when called ends the fun, and they'll do less of it. Likewise, many dogs refuse to follow our commands because it's not worth it. Why in the world would your dog want to come back to you when there is a super exciting dog to play with at the park? Make sure to use a high-value treat to make yourself more interesting than whatever else is out there.